All right, so we're going to need to do a few things with these materials. We're going to get the class and then figure out how to get the blend mode based on that information, and then figure out if all of the blend modes are valid. So I'm going to make a new function here called process materials. Let me go ahead and grab this. Now let's go ahead and just print the blend mode, just to make sure that everything is working as expected, and to get a look at how the blend mode is formatted. Details. All right, so here we can see a lot of mask, a lot of opaque. The translucents are not going to work though, so we got to make sure we skip those. But this is an enum. There isn't an easy way to format this in such a way that I could just get the mask. We're going to have to convert this to a string and then just do a string operation. We can either be looking for 1 or 0, or we can look for opaque or masked. And I think opaque and masked makes a little more sense. So we'll go ahead and do that. First thing I'll do is create a list here. Gonna make another list called blend modes. And then I'll make an int called count. So what I'm gonna do is iterate over every blend mode of every material in our materials list. And if I can find opaque or masked in that material, then I'm gonna go ahead and increment this by 1. And if at the end count equals the length of materials, then every material on this static mesh actor will have passed our test, so we can go ahead and enable Nanite on it. We don't need to be doing these prints anymore. Sorry, I think I need to convert this to a string. All right, let's just do a little test here. Let's just grab one at random. Take a look at the material on it. And we can see it is masked. Let's try an alternative test. So in this case, what this means is one of the materials on this static mesh actor has registered as using a blend mode that is not valid for Nanite. So let's just see if we can find something that looks accurate for that scenario. Clearly that is going to be using a transparent blend mode. Cool. All right, so I'm confident that the logic here is sound. So the next step is going to be to enable Nanite on these static meshes. So to do that, I'm going to create a new function. So the first thing we're going to do here is we need to get the static mesh. Static mesh actor has an object called static mesh component, which has a property called static mesh. So up here, I made a mistake. I wanted to test to see if the static mesh actor existed. That's not necessary. Clearly, it's going to be something. What I was confused about is whether or not that static mesh actor has a static mesh. So this is where we actually need to test that. So we can probably just get rid of that line there. It's possible to have a static mesh actor that does not have a static mesh. So we'll just confirm. My guess is if this has already passed the materials test, it's probably got a static mesh. My assumption is static mesh is probably required before you can have materials, but doesn't hurt to check. So what we want on the static mesh, let's hop over to documentation real quick, is the Nanite settings. As an editor property called Nanite settings, which points to an object called mesh Nanite settings. And mesh Nanite settings has a property called enabled. So what we're going to do initially is we're just going to double check to see that we can access the enabled property, just to confirm that everything is set up properly. And then we'll go ahead and apply a new setting with this enabled. And let me hop back over, make sure I get this exactly right. So for now, let's go ahead and just print whether or not Nanite is currently enabled. So we got a whole bunch of falses here. And then for every time we hit a static mesh actor that's using that one static mesh that we set up, we're going to get a true in there. Because we have, yeah, we do have that one assigned. Okay, so we could set this code up so that we were only iterating over each static mesh once, like we could make a unique list of all the static meshes. But in this case, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, if not, we're going to go ahead And first set this to true. And now we need to apply these settings. There's going to be a few in here, but the one we're looking for is going to be this one here. Static Mesh Editor Subsystem Set Nanite Settings. Go ahead and grab that. So what it's going to be looking for is the static mesh, the Nanite settings, and then whether or not we want to apply the changes. And this is a child of the editor subsystem, so we need to instantiate it. All right, so we have the static mesh, and we have our mesh Nanite settings. I'll make this a little bit smaller. Minimize this. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the triangle view mode. Clear that out and run the code. And there you go. So everything that has valid materials has been automatically converted to be using Nanite, and anything that has a material that is not valid in terms of its blend mode has been skipped by this process. So it would be pretty easy at this point to add a little extra logic here to save the static meshes. If you've got source control, you can check them out, check them back in. So anyway, hopefully this has been a useful demonstration. Just a few functions here with some fairly simple code. Allows us to skip a ton of unpleasant and laborious and error-prone manual work. So if this seems like something that you're interested in and have a need for in your production, please feel free once again to check out my intro course on it. I've got a few other tutorials on my personal dev community page. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email or post a question on the comments, and I will do my very best to get back to you. Thank you very much.